3, 2, 1. And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Between Two Wheels podcast. This is your host, Tyler Janke, coming to you on the 7th of June. We're going to do a recap of the Giro d'Italia, the 2019 Giro d'Italia, kind of stages, I want to say about 12, 13 through to the end. Not going to go over stage by stage, but we'll do some recaps, some winners and losers, maybe some NCNCA highlights of the district crits, some Nevada City Classic. Cascade Classic makes a comeback with an old school takedown, some viewer listener mailbag, things that make you go, winners and losers. So welcome, and let's get going into this. All right. So let's talk first of all about the Giro. So what we had, first of all, last time I came to everybody, we had the Giro going up through about stage 12 or 13, I think. I think we had talked about stage 13. So we'll just kind of go from that spot onward. And look, pretty good Giro. Maybe yes or no, maybe you enjoyed it. We'll get into what I thought of the whole thing. But last we knew, we had, well, the first stage, first half of the first 2 weeks basically of the Giro were consistent of time trial. It wasn't a prologue, it was a time trial. Flat stages, so all the sprinters basically got to come out and do their thing, which is pretty cool to see. Or was it? And then you had another time trial where Roglic once again dominates. Looks like he's the guy to win this whole thing. The sprinters get jettisoned out, and then it's the climbers' time. And did this bode well for the race? Talk about that a little bit later. Kind of give my thoughts of what it was, cramming it all in the end, but having so much time up front, and how that kind of played into the riders. So we go into stage 13. Like I said, the sprinters had dominated before there, a lot of flatness, but this is where the fun begins. So stage 13 and 14, possibly where the favorites lost it, because in stage 13 you get Carapaz going up the road. Well, first of all, let's talk about it. This is the Giro d'Italia. It's a big race in Italy. There's the three major Grand Tours. There's the Tour de France, which everyone knows about. There's the Tour of Italy, which comes first. And then there's the Tour of Spain, which bookends the three Grand Tours. Grand Tours being those that are about 3 weeks in length. So the big spectacle is the Tour de France, as you know. These are similar, but they get a showcase. They're obviously Spain and Italy, both of those have some fantastic climbing to be had in them, and that's kind of what marks the big Grand Tours. You got some flat stages, you got some climbing, you have some time trials, and each one of these tours tweak their things just a little bit different. I think the majestic beauty of the Giro, the Tour of Italy, is kind of what draws that in. It's a little early season. You've got some massive climbs there. Tour of Spain, the Vuelta, has a little more punchier climbs. And then you've got the Tour de France, which is just the thing that it is. But what makes this one so interesting, this in the Vuelta, is you never know where these riders are coming in. And what I mean by that is their fitness. So the Tour, every rider that gets selected, it's now 7-man squads. Every rider that gets selected, they are top form. They've peaked for this, and they are, they've made the Tour roster. They're ready for it, and it's peaked from top to bottom. So everyone is on form. Then you've got the Giro, which some people are kind of using it for tour preparation, perhaps. Other ones are coming in flying, but you don't have everyone kind of at the same level. And then it's a long season, and then not everyone is at the Giro like you do at the Tour. Everyone shows up at the Tour. Well, almost everybody. And then the Tour of Spain and the bookends on the part of the year is some of those guys that missed out on the Giro. You've got the Giro, as a matter of fact, this year, Tom Dumoulin comes in, hurts his knee. He ends up taken out early. Maybe he does the Tour, probably will. Sometimes some of these other ones, they're going to do they're going to the Tour and then they crash out of there, or they get sick. And so now their chance is the Vuelta. So sometimes that's the last chance saloon, the Vuelta. Sometimes this is, you're going to set your season up in the Giro. And then, like I said, the Tour, everyone's coming to fit. So you never know how these riders and all these different things manifest themselves for this race. And it plays a part. So last year we had Tom Dumoulin, you had Simon Yates, you had Chris Froome, who ended up winning it on stage 19. Kind of comes from it, slowly worked his way into it, but all throughout the race, it had looked like Simon Yates was the one that was going to be taking this over. He'd been winning stages, killing everybody. But slowly but surely, Froome's coming in, taking over. And like I said, stage 19, Froome makes this daring attack, ends up winning the stage. Tom Dumoulin's trying to catch him, can't do it. Simon Yates goes out the back. He loses big time on that day. You had Pinot lost a bunch of time on that day, or in the next day as well. Fabio Aru, he lost his tour somewhat significantly. Manifested itself the same way as Aru or as Pinot, getting blown out of the tour on that day. And then some of the guys that kind of came up near the end, one of them was Richard Carapaz, and he of the Movistar team kind of didn't really show himself except for those last few stages when he started to come in good, and he gets 4th place. So coming into this race, you got Tom Dumoulin once again. You have Simon Yates, who had redeemed himself, just kind of that whole process I talked about last year, not doing well at the Giro. Well, won a bunch of, did he not do well? I mean, he won a bunch of stages. He's in the pink jersey up until stage 19 and then gets blown out, comes and redeems himself at the Vuelta by winning that race, the overall. So he comes into the Giro. He had famously said at the beginning, people should be shitting themselves because I'm so fit. Okay, whatever. He was very confident, and up until stage 13 or so, he hadn't looked all that great. Primož Roglič, the Jumbo-Visma team, comes into the race, and he had been 4th in the Tour last year. It looked very good. A lot of attacking, a lot of putting the pedal down and taking 2 other riders in the races he's won this year, and trying to win the Tour last year. So he comes into there. He dominates in the first time trial, dominates in the second time trial, beats everyone by a minute. It's like 3 minutes into Yates, minute into Nibali. It looks like he is the guy. Tom Dumoulin has been from Belgium, Dutch rider, crashes out early, so he's not going to be there to contend, which he had won, the Giro a few years ago. Anyway, it's just kind of setting itself up, and it's looking like Roglič is the one, especially after the time trial. Nibali's still looking good, and he has a record of coming on great in the last few weeks. And then you have stages 13 and 14 that had the time trial, not stage 9, 10, 11, kind of flattish. 12, Ilnur Zakarin, I think, wins that. You're getting into some climbing stuff. Stage 13, they allow Carapaz to go up the road, and with him went Mikel Landa. They gave a little, not quite a minute or so around there on Roglič. And I heard a reporter ask Roglič, hey, are you giving away the jersey? In other words, Roglic's team was not strong. They had lost Lars de Plume already in the race. Robert Hessink was supposed to come in, a big climber for them. He didn't even get to start the race because he got hurt. So they had Sepp Kuss, a brand new American, has only been racing, in the World Tour. I mean, this is his second year, but he's only been even racing pro like for 4. Pretty heady, lofty, races he's doing, but he's still new to the whole prospect. And you're throwing him in for a Grand Tour, trying to help protect for your main rider. Anyway, he's got a depleted team, and with that, he perhaps is giving away the jersey. In other words, letting Carapaz go up there, get into the lead, thinking he can still recoup. Because remember, it comes down to the last day time trial. Roglič is still one that's likely going to take it from the majority, the head of the stages, the GC riders being able to be the one to take that over. At least that's what's anticipated. We had that a few years ago with Dumoulin. He comes into the last stage. That was the Duke Tour 2 years ago, where he lost some time. He had to take a dump while he was out on the mountain stage, loses some more time to Quintana, but in the very last day of the Giro, ends up making that back in the time trial. And that's what you expect Roglič to do well as well, because he's a very good time trial. Carapaz gets up the road. Maybe he is letting, because now if Carapaz is in the lead, he's going to have to, his team's going to have to work, lets him get up the road. Stage 14, Carapaz actually gets up the road again with Landa and scores the stage win. So 2 stages in a row, and this time he gets about a minute 30. So 2 of those in a row, he gets down there, and he's looking good for the overall as far as being able to be in pink for a while. Stage 15 didn't look all that dangerous on paper, the route itself, but coming the day before so they had another rest day coming up. It just kind of played out quite differently. Roglic was suffering, because he didn't have great team support, and extended all the way. He's going up, I think, the second to last climb, and has a descent and then another pitch up. And his team decides, everything's looking fine. There's 40, 50K maybe left at the most, and things are looking good. Team manager in the car, he has to go to the bathroom. He has to take a pee. So they pull off. And right when that happens, Roglic's derailleur breaks down. I don't know if it broke. He didn't work. I don't know if it was an electronic one. Either way, he finally has a teammate. Tolhoek was coming up. He gets Tolhoek's bike. The bike's a little smaller. He has to chase back on because they're hitting this climb, and he finally gets back on. But then on the climb itself, he loses some distance. They pitch over the top. He's just a few seconds down, coming around the corner, and a horrific, spectacularly looking potential crash where he's up against the guardrail. Now you're descending pretty nasty, hairy descents on, a bike that's not yours. It throws and look, it's just a little bit smaller. People are going, it's a little bit smaller. It's not going to be a big deal. But when you have the reach is just a little bit different, and it's not your bike, it's going to, when you're descending, the weight difference is going to be just a little bit. And with that, you're going to have a little bit more problems for the descent. Either way, that's pretty much what happened. He loses more time there. Now, we don't know what that effect had on him, the crash, going through the rest of the race. Either the physical part of it, just having gone down, and I don't know what the bike change itself had to do with him kind of losing some, but he did not look, he was fighting, he was battling. So he loses, he comes in there. He didn't make contact again. He gave up 51 seconds to the winner, who that day was Dario Cataldo of Astana, and about 43 seconds to Nibali, Carapaz, and Yates. So then we sets up the next one, stage 16. It's the massive one. It's got the Mortarola. It's got the Gavia. The Gavia, they end up saying it's impossible because of too much snow. So instead of going up the Gavia, coming back there on the round side, and then going back up the Mortarola to finish a little descent and then pitch, they just go up the Mortarola. Now, it's got really bad weather. There's rain. There's a break off in the front, and as they approach the Mortarola, there's a break ahead. You've got, I think Hugh Carthy's not in there, but Giulio Caccioni of Trek is in that group. Jan Hurt, and they fight together up the climb. You had Joe Dombrowski of EF Education First in that group. He ends up staying away from the main field, who ends up lighting it up on the climb, and Nibali attacks fairly low down on the slopes. Hugh Carthy of EF Education First ends up going with him. And look, the gangly Brit hung really tough on Nibali's wheel, slinging, swaying around, but he didn't quite ever lose contact. Like I said, Joe Dombrowski of EF Education First, he had been in the break. He stays with the GC rivals up until the summit of the Mortarola. And then when they're coming down, Joe ends up tagging along with Hugh Carthy, gets on him, and that group ends up going to the finish. However, Roglic loses contact. He loses about a minute overall. He's fighting his way all the way up the climb. To only lose a minute is actually not too bad about that. But Carapaz, so Roglic loses a little bit of time. Lopez loses about 20 seconds, while Carapaz and Landa caught and stayed with Nibali. So there was some fighting going out there. Huge Carthy and Dombrowski weren't really taking polls, and when they come across the finish line, you can see Nibali looking over at Hugh Carthy, kind of giving him some what has for looks, like he hadn't been doing anything. Interesting side story. I heard an interview with Larry Warbass, who said that day he had some words with Hugh Carthy. I guess they're, just kind of your nerves are on end, and those two are yelling at each other. And he said then after he saw Hugh Carthy at the finish getting kind of looked at of Nibali, and one of the comments that Hugh had said to Larry Warbass was something about, no one's giving me respect in room, because I guess there's some butting into each other. And so Larry's like, maybe he's right. Maybe he's a little more upset about the disrespect he's getting from Nibali than what he's actually getting from him. Anyway, good stage. Coming to stage 17, the break once again gets its day. Nance Peters, AG2R, gets the better of Esteban Chavez and David Formolo, who both of them were kind of coming into their own in the last end of the tour. But from the GC standpoint, Landa, Carapaz, Carthy, they all gained a few seconds, with Roglic, Nibali still watching each other and probably still thinking that they are the ones to beat. Although after the Mortarolo, you should start to think, look, we're not making up any time on Carapaz, and who's starting to look good here is Carapaz, Mikel Landa, but Landa's working for Carapaz. Then you've got Lopez, and Lopez, when he would attack, he looked like no one could go with him. But the problem was he would fizzle a little bit and everyone would just kind of come back. Kind of like how Yates had always been when he attacks, but Yates kind of floundering, still having to suffer. He has a few teammates with him, unlike Roglic. All right. Stage 18 gives us a sprint stage, kind of crammed in between the mountains drama, with at least, what the results appear to show. But in reality, I mean, when you look at the finished photo, it looks like it was a sprint stage. But Damiano Chima, he won the stage, and he had been in a break. I forget the other guy's name that was with him, and he sprints around him as the field's catching him. So the finish line photo is him posting up, and just right on his bike is the entire field sprint. With Ackerman taking second. So Ackerman misses out on the win. It looks like a field sprint, but it's really the break that had survived. A lot of the riders were saying that day they were getting missed split times. But, if they had won that by a bike length, they would have said, oh, we timed it perfectly. So kudos to that guy for being able to stay away, Dario Chima, and getting the win that he probably never would have expected. Stage 19. The profile basically looked like a giant ski jump, sloped all the way up to the top, and the break took advantage of this. But more convincingly than the previous day, than when the guy just barely made it. This time the break was like 6 minutes or so. So as the break hits the final climb, it wasn't a steep climb either. Chavez is in there with some other guys, and Chavez is just try and drill in as much as possible to try to get away from these guys, and they keep coming back to him. But they're climbing in the big ring, so it's just not significant enough. And finally, though, Chavez cracks everybody. He stays away, and he does a pretty good time up to the finish. Parents are there. I even heard at the finish, Nibali said he had some good words about Chavez. Oh, Chavez won, and pretty glad about that. Then, of course, he likes to turn it to himself, and he's like, oh, a few years ago he won, and his parents were here, and then I won the race. I took the pink jersey, so maybe that's a good omen for me. Of course, the Shark of Messina is always thinking out for himself. Either way, Nibali, sorry to spoil it for you, does not end up taking pink this time. Chavez's parents were there. They were pretty frantic and excited at the finish. Otherwise, pretty standard day for the favorites there. Lopez took a few seconds out of the favorites. Roglic dragging the rest across the line, about 6:20 or so behind, along with Carapaz. Stage 20. So we got 2 stages left here. This is the real mountain test, and time for the guys to get some more breathing room before they hit the time trial the last day. And, so their idea is we're going to try to take some Carapaz. We want to take some time on these guys because he probably doesn't still feel comfortable over Nibali. There's still some battle for the white jersey with Sivakov. There's Lopez. He's kind of stuck in there on 7th place. People want to get more time on Roglic. Landa's in 4th, and he wants to move up. So this is, like I said, this is a big test before the time trial. It's 194 kilometers, about 4 cat climbs, and then an uphill finish. The route, hey, it was good to give everyone a show. So what you end up seeing, though, Pilo Bebal and Ciccone, I believe, they had been in the break for the day, and they get caught when all the GC riders start to just really attack everyone. Roglic gets dropped. He's battling. Yates is battling. This back up because there was a little bit of controversy here. So you see in one of the second to last climb, Roglic is suffering. He doesn't look very snappy. This whole tour, he never went on the offensive in the mountains. He just didn't have it. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about he and Yates, both of them never really had that opportunity. It makes you wonder if there was been climbing in the first few weeks, how they would have fared, because I think their fitness, they came in super sharp. And I think their fitness was to the point where they would have been attacking. You would have seen that. Maybe Yates wouldn't have, because he would have been trying to hold his gunpowder dry and hold it in reserve like he didn't do last year. Either way, Roglic is suffering a little bit, and you get these guys start pushing his saddle, pushing him on this bike as he's going up the climb. And he's not swatting them off. Usually you see the riders, swatting the hand. This guy's doing it like maybe 100 meters. Then another one takes over and he's just letting them do it right in the middle of the field. That doesn't end up helping him. And matter of fact, he gets a penalty here. We'll talk about in just a second. Then there's another incident up the final climb. Well, it's the climb before the pitch over the end. And then they have a fatter finish there. And then another kick up to the finish. But they, on the climb there, you've got Lopez is starting to, he's kind of with Roglic and he's losing contact. And all of a sudden the cameras kind of twist. He's on the ground and then he's hitting this guy's, the spectator's on the ground. He hits the spectator's hat. He's like kicking and punching this guy. And you're like, geez, what happened? Well, basically this idiot is running alongside, it's just a mess. Running alongside the riders. He brings down Lopez. Lopez freaks out and does this. Okay. So what you have is Lopez loses time, but his whole thing there, he didn't lose enough time to change the overall position. So he still, he didn't move up. He didn't move down. No one went in front of him. So it was kind of a wash in that respect. However, Roglic, he got a time penalty and he also lost time on the day. And with the combination of those, he moved from third to fourth and Landa moved up. Carapaz, once again, just looked great. Like I said, Pale Bilbao ends up winning the day with Ciccone. He outkicks Landa, Ciccone, Carapaz, and Nibali. He had Tano Kangert of EF Education First had held into that group along with Ciccone. Like I said, Yates lost some. Roglic lost about 50 seconds along with Hugh Carthy, while Lopez came in at 1 minute and 49 back. Okay. So what do I think about those two penalties? Well, Roglic should have tried to push that guy's hand off, and so he gets penalized for that. And I get it, but at some point, if you have these rules where the fans participate and that Roglic isn't trying to there's not a conspiracy where he's trying to make this happen. He didn't go and hire these guys, presumably. I mean, we can have a commission dig into that, but I'm assuming not because it wasn't enough to do much anyway. You can have fans that don't like a rider. Hey, I don't like Nibali. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to push him. And if he doesn't swap me off in record number or amount of time, he's going to get docked, and that could be a problem. So that maybe they need to look at that. And then the second one is Lopez. There's a UCI rule that if you make contact like in an aggressive manner to a non-participant, basically they're saying a fan, it's automatic expulsion. He was not automatically expelled. Matter of fact, he didn't even get a time penalty. And I get it. You look at that and you're like, yeah, I don't know, would I have done the same thing? I mean, these are these guys' livelihood. Someone's coming into me and my job, I'm in court, and they're making a big deal, and I'm losing my case because the judge is taking this into consideration for some rando just yelling at me. That would piss me off. And I mean, you go at your job, and someone starts just taking it's. And I know these are fans, are part of it, but come on, you got to stop running along. I mean, I saw this at the Tour of California, the cookie people who are supposedly all in the know about cycling. They're doing that with the lead riders, and it was annoying, and it was in the way. If you want to do that to the guys, coming up at the end, dinking around, maybe that's a different story. But when you're up at the front and it's the guy's livelihood, it's his career. As an example, Landa. Likely he had something written in his contract for getting a top 3 in a Grand Tour race. He ends up getting 4th, okay, by 8 seconds. Spoiler on what we're going to talk about here on stage 21. But he gets it by 8 seconds, gets 4th place. That's probably a lot of money he missed out on. What if that was due to someone, causing him, to deviate or to go down or to put his foot down on the ground on a climb? I mean, you might crack back at that guy too. So I totally understand. And, the UCI, I guess, is going to be doing an investigation about that, partly because they have this strict liability law of expulsion. But there's got to be some gray area. And look, the UCI, some of the rulings have been just atrocious lately. You had the one out there with TJ in California on the race jury. That was bad. There had some other ones during the Giro. This just probably continues. Okay, stage 21. Like I said, we've had some time trials ending tours before, most famously 1989, Greg LeMond winning over Laurent Fignon. We've had that happen in the Vuelta. I remember I've mentioned this before, but Levi getting his first top podium, overcoming someone for that. You've had this with Dumoulin in the Giro recently, 2 years ago, being able to take over Quintana. So and then I must say the way that the Giro had it this time, they finished, and then they had them coming into a stadium where they can cheer them after they've come across the line, and it's kind of a cool thing. So it was pretty neat. Final time trial, all the drama is pretty much gone. Carapaz ends up winning 105 over Nibali. The only drama that you really had there was two issues. You had who was going to win the actual stage itself. You had Kampernitz in the lead at one point, and then very quickly you had American Chad Haga of Sunweb taking the overall and sitting on the hot seat and hoping that Roglic doesn't beat him. Roglic's time not good enough. Matter of fact, Roglic was even a second behind Nibali. So then you had Nibali and Roglic 230 behind Chad Haga. That's for the overall. Nibali was 230 and Roglic was a little bit more. And third place, like I said, just 8 seconds over Landa. Chad Haga wins by 4 seconds over Victor Campenaerts, who's a world hour record holder for Lotto Soudal right now. So very impressive for him. His point, he said, was, look, I came into this race. I was been working on my climbing. He's a good time trialist as well. But it's really had worked on his climbing to help Tom Dumoulin for the race. Tom Dumoulin crashes out. Now Sunweb's left without anybody. So what they ended up doing was they said, okay, Chad, you just sit in the gruppetto and basically get ready for the last time trial. And so he's sitting in the gruppetto every day with Victor Campenaerts, but he climbs twice as good as Campenaerts. So his being able to come in even fresher than everybody else really was the key to Chad Haga's victory. Okay, what do I say about some of these riders? Well, we have Carapaz. Carapaz, the overall winner. Like I said, last year he was fourth. He's really come up. He's a first Ecuadorian winner. I mean, look, what'd you know about Ecuador up until this? Well, you knew maybe about Julian Assange, WikiLeaks, that he's been staying in the Ecuadorian embassy over in the UK. Other than that, I don't know much about Ecuador myself, but Carapaz, the biggest guy there. The presidents released where they were able to. Everyone was watching the final stage. My question is, why weren't they able to before? You love these dictator presidents who make themselves look so wonderful because they let the people watch something that they should have been able to do. We're not going to get into that. Okay. And then you had Nibali. He's kind of getting at the end of his Grand Tour career. He's won it all. He still kind of seems like he's the guy to me that held onto the mirror and took off from everybody in the car, grabbed the car. But very impressive with his race, being able to, he's very good at just, he maybe won this or solidified his second place going downhill. You even saw that on stage 20, he was with Roglic over the top, kills it on the descent. And as they come into the last pitch, he distanced him before that pitch. They were together, and then boom, they're like 10, 15, 20 seconds. He hits the bottom and he ends up putting more time on Roglic. And that was pretty impressive. Mikel Landa, I mean, what's this guy got to do? He always looks like he's that guy that's going to be there to, compete with his team and his team leader for the overall, but ends up working. And look, the reality is if Landa could time trial, that he would possibly be a guy that could threaten the overall, and his team would probably pick him. But Carapaz had a big enough lead, didn't need to really worry about time trialing. But even then, he appears to time trial a little better than Landa. Bauke Mollema ends up in 5th place. Very impressed with him this tour. He got a little bit more consistent. Rafa Majka, kind of just the unsung guy for Bora Hansgrohe this year in this race. Lopez, disappointment, I must say, for all that he's been able to do and the flashes of brilliance that he's had. Once it won, he flashed pretty good punching the spectator, but other than that, he kind of fizzled. Yates, I don't know. Was this a better tour, getting a top 10 than it was winning a bunch of stages and getting 25th last year? Probably for his overall confidence and his overall ability to win the tour. This might have been a better race than that one last year. Sivakov for Team Ineos, pretty good race for him. Young guy, big guy. Ilnur Zakarin, he had won a stage. Hugh Carthy and Joe Dombrowski, both getting in the top 12, 13 there. Very much more consistent. Instead of losing 15, 20 minutes on a day, that's all they lost for the whole race. So good for those guys. Tom Dumoulin, disappointment to see him go out, but maybe we'll get to see him in the tour. It was great to see the sprinters. Caleb Ewing win. Other than that, what do I think about the excuse me, what do I think about the race in general? I was actually disappointed. Having all those flat stages early on, I think led to, excuse me, some of the GC hopefuls not being able to time themselves just right. And so, you missed out on Yates, you missed out on Roglic kind of being able to compete for it in a more dynamic fashion. I know it was pretty boring for the first 2 weeks. So, maybe a 2 out of 5. I don't know. Okay, so what do we have coming up next? We have the Dauphiné coming up starting this weekend. When the Dauphiné starts, that's when the tour is about ready to come. So boom, we're done with the Giro. We're ready to start the tour. And we'll start talking about, Froome, start talking about Geraint Thomas. If he's fit and he's ready to go. What about at the local scene? Well, we had our district Matt, and we'll talk about this in coming up episode with Curt and Chris. But we had our districts. We the race venue and the time of the year changed to Folsom from Pleasanton, and from September to May. Race entry was a little light. I did the 45 to 49 group. I posted up. We'll put a link to it. Last lap race video. Mike Sayers won our race. I blew it. I was 6th and could have done much better. The P1, I did the P1-2 race afterwards. Matt Chat won that. It was impressive to see that. There's a good video a vegan cyclist had, and it talks about the dude in white, and he's talking about Chris. Chris puts some power down. They bridge up to the break, and Chris is comes, and I saw this in action as well. But he bridges up to vegan cyclist Tyler Pierce. Then there's still a gap to the field to break. Chris goes to the front and is laying it down, and vegan Tyler is doing like 500 watts trying to stay in Chris's wake. And Chris looks around, kind of gives him the elbow to come through. He can't do it, and then Chris stands up, just puts the power down again. It was very impressive, even if it was a short duration. Good for those guys. We had Nevada City, small amount of reg. Dude, I love that race. I missed it due to I've been sick. I've had kids graduating, 2 of them, so I kind of missed out on that. But like I said, we'll recap that with Curt and Chris as well. Mount Hamilton, look, there's always deserving winners there, and what that kind of led to was Cascade coming up. So Mount Hamilton, and then they had Cascade Classic. So a lot of those guys that were like Mike's Bikes guys went on to do Cascade. So we'll talk about that. Looking to recap the Cascade Classic. They have a bunch of new courses, different terrain. They used some gravel. They had Cory Lockwood getting kicked out due to looked like he intentionally wrecking some other rider. He was pissed off because they were no team on the break. The break's getting up the road. Travis McCabe's up there. Avelo's up there. Everyone's up there but him. So he starts brake checking people, and you put Chechkov, I guess, on the ground. Bilbao of Avolo on someone broke their bike. Now Cory Lockwood rides for Semproporo, and it's funny because at the time Andrew Shimizu was on. There was a film of him on the rear bumper of the Semproporo team trying to catch back up. I guess he had flatted, and maybe he'll have some insight. Maybe he was able to hear some radio conversation from that. But high drama, broken bikes, broken bodies, kicked out Cory Lockwood. His team sounded like they were not defending him. They were apologetic as can be. And, Cory won Redlands. And look, is this the demise for him? I mean, people aren't going to stand for that. But I don't know how. Look, it's not the one from a few years ago. I think it was Roberto Gaggioli, my old teammate, who someone said he came after them, I think after like the Twilight, Athens Twilight crit with a 2x4. I mean, there was some serious, I don't think that was this case. It's just some breaks. Cory says it's not what everyone thinks. Okay. I don't know. We'll get back to that. Look, I had some comments to me from the viewers here and the listeners about the equal pay issue that I talked about. I'm not getting any really pushback online, but some people talked to me about it offhand, and some good stuff. I think I tried to temper that, and if anybody wants to talk about that, we'd be glad to. I think what you just have to realize is anytime you're thinking of putting in laws restricting people from being able to do something, which is what the California thing is doing. It's restricting. I know you're trying to make it egalitarian here, but what you end up doing is you got to think about what's happening in Colorado. So they're putting on a women's only race. Like I said, if you do that try to do that under this law that they're trying to pass here in California, that race is illegal. So you are essentially cutting out the women. They want their own race. I'm all for that. Matter of fact, I've said for years, and I'll say it again. I said it last time. Make it on their own, and I don't mean make it on their own, but make your own. You've got a great product. Let's showcase that instead of trying to. You want to be involved with the boring races that some of the guys do. No, I don't want to see the men do that. I don't want to see the women do that. I want to see the women do their own race. Okay. Some things that make you go, well, I don't know that I have anything. So let's get Reg up. Let's get some better racing going on here. Let's get some good weather. We got some good weather finally coming around. And like I said, we got Tour de France right around the corner. Some winners and losers. Look, those that did the Giro, I got to get it to Carapaz. Big winner. Impressed with the way he went out. Big loser for that. You're probably looking at Roglic and Simon Yates. Well, let's go Simon Yates. You can't come out and just say people should be shitting themselves because I'm in such good fitness and then not even win a stage. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of his, but maybe the winners or it would be Dombrowski and Hugh Carthy as well, based on the fact that they were actually pretty consistent, and it was good to watch them. So, hey, it's what it is. Okay, so that's it for episode 121. Thanks for tuning in. I love doing the podcast. I've got some people lined up for the summer to come into our office and studio and do some interviews. That's really what I like to do as well. So we'll still be looking to do that, keeping up on the race schedule. I know we've lost some races and some things are kind of up in the air, including my fitness. But that's all it is. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And as always, share, subscribe, check out the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbeam, wherever this podcast can be found. We're also Between Two Wheels on our Facebook page. Look for us on our YouTube channel. Look, on our YouTube channel, we not only do this show that we broadcast up there, but we also do race videos. So we film races. We do Pro 1-2 races, Pro 1 races, Masters. We did a lot of Masters races. But we post some cool videos up there and I try to link into any other cool ones out there. The people happen to be Jeff Dale. I saw did I think every race up there at Cascade. Videoed it. Oh no, you know what? And Chris Phipps, I think he won he's a Masters racer, former national champion. He won, I think, every stage of his race. So I have to see if he was the only one racing. Chris is an amazing rider, so I doubt it because he can do that. That is the kind of thing he can do. Anyway, make some comments, share the show, and everyone, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, we'll have Chris and Curt here maybe as well. Well, not in the studio this time where I'm at, but maybe out there where you are. Thanks for joining in. Take care.